I'm so excited about all the tea, like actual tea, not like gossip tea.
Yeah.
I am
All of that too can be fun in the
Yes, of
right
course,
circumstances.
of course. But
I
like,
am I'm gonna drop like tea bombs left and right. Just like I really love this idea of like a very proud mountain community, like of like maybe one or two, like I'm thinking maybe like two or three at the most, like families that have had this in for generations. And they definitely like marry people from like not, I mean, it's not like an ancestors thing. Like they do marry outside of the family, but once you're part of the family, like you're part of the family.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like family secrets and lore around like recipes, tea production, even maybe like some of the ceramics that they commission from people. I think that could be really good too. But I love this. I'm just like really getting invested in this, like this one character. I want her name to be something tea related, but I also didn't want, I like Liana, I'm like, I don't want to like look up sites that might just lead me in the wrong direction. So
yeah, all of the names I picked are very much like people who actually know Chinese. You are welcome to change.
Yeah,
I just wanted something in there because I get antsy if things look incomplete.
That's fair. I wrote name undecided.
I also wrote name was undecided name. But I really love the idea of like this tension within this family of just like, because the pestilence, whoever came up with the idea, primo, awesome, well done.
that was mine. I was super excited to see
great.
that people are kind of, because I had this idea of just like a pestilence seems like something that would potentially threaten a more remote, less connected village. So just as kind of backstory flavor, I introduced the idea that the blacksmith, who is awesome, her parents were just, you know, they were taken by pestilence, and that's just part of how that goes.
Yeah,
I very much appreciate Agatha's addition of the granny, though. I love her.
I saw the pestilence thing, and I was like, all of my story information. Like, I feel like that's the thing that's so cool about the group world building, I guess, because it's just like, I wouldn't be able to just come up with these things like on my own, but it was because I saw what you wrote, Liana. Then I was like, wow, there has to be a granny who survived all of this.
And the pestilence thing really made me think about a couple of articles I read recently about the Navajo community who are hit extremely hard by COVID right now. And there are just so many communities where, you know, their heritage and their culture, the way they do things was in like a precarious place to begin with, and now it's even worse. And so I really like the idea of like using the pestilence to sort of explore what it takes to hold on to your heritage and how you adapt, you know, in this new reality where a whole generation is missing. So I think it's a pretty cool idea, and thank you for putting that in.
Of course, I'm very glad that it inspired others. I always enjoy just the process of bouncing ideas and everyone's own ideas getting better for getting sent through the mill.
When it all comes together.
Yeah.
It's like the little bit of bitterness that makes everything taste sweeter, if that makes any sense.
Oh, a tea.
Is that a tea related thing?
Oh no, that's just me. That's just me being a bougie ass person who likes food and shit.
Fair enough.
I know, I love it. The bitterness that makes the sweetness sweeter. Food and shit. I love that.
Welcome to me. Classy, but I don't know. I like
randomly. Have you played the Ace Attorney games, specifically the third Ace Attorney games?
No, I haven't. I should.
You would enjoy the character named Godot. He's constantly waxing poetic about coffee.
Yep, that is correct.
That sounds lovely. Also, Michelle, I specifically went and made tea because I saw your tea section and I was like, yeah, I need to be on point.
I also would like some tea right now.
Yeah.
I made myself this matcha latte with oat milk.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's tasty. Yeah, the way I'm actually really excited that we're making this slightly more Chinese in terms of flavor, because I think that the Chinese production of tea is just so much more organic. It's very similar to like wine production, in that it is so influenced by terroir and climate and altitude and the way it's processed, like whether or not you roll it, how much do you oxidize it, how much do you roast it, do you just let it fade, like under lamps and stuff, under fans. And it's just I find that Japanese tea is very there's like a very like regimented way of doing it, which produces an extremely high quality tea. But it's so much less like, it's so much more controlled.
Yeah. They don't go with the flow. They're like, this is how tea is made.
This is how the tea is made. We will blend the sencha so that the sencha flavor will be the same as last year. Like,
yep. Every time.
As my father did, and his father before him.
And yeah, like that's why I think Chinese tea is like, I've switched to drinking Japanese tea daily because it's just so much easier to prepare because it's engineered to be easy. But I like on days where I'm feeling like putting in the extra effort, I think a Chinese tea is just so great. I have like so much tea downstairs. It's the problem.
Well, it sounds like we're going to do other Asian locations when we do a Japanese setting, like more tea.
we get the like large silk screens that, and then we like start layering them in order to block out more and more sunlight, so we like develop the chlorophyll a little more, so we get that bright green.
Whoa, this is so cool. I did not know.
No, seriously, like this book is like rad. You should get it and read it because it's real good.
I'm gonna see if we have it in the library.
Is there a specific author or is it a collected volume?
It's a collected, but Kevin Gascoigne. I don't know if this is helpful.
I'm gonna write this down.
That's very small.
My notes are just T, Kevin. So, it's just able to find it.
It's called T. It's called T, and then the subtitle is History, Terroirs, and Varieties.
I found it. I found it on Amazon already.
Nice. Number one tea book.
Oh, okay. Well, somehow it is $86 on Amazon. We need to. I'm looking. That's because whoever's the source for it is out of it. Hold on, let me go to Barnes and Noble.
This is $25.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm going to Barnes and Noble.
You could probably find it on Thrift Books.
Probably as well.
What is Thrift Books?
Really good used book site. It's where I got that book about Chinese fashion and dress through history. Like, it's where I got Daniel's book.
Really?
Yeah, I got it through that site.
Yeah.
Is this in Canada?
I don't know actually.
So yes, the book is $25 on Barnes and Noble, so we're fine.
It is also on the Toronto Public Library network.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out. Like there
are 15 copies and 0 holds.
Yeah, like they have a whole section on the production of pu'er tea.
Oh my gosh.
And it gives you pictures and stuff like that.
This is so
cool. This one definitely seems like one that you'd want to own for reference, though, if you're very much into tea.
Yeah, like this was instrumental in helping me fully understand all of the specifics of tea for my job when I had it before my hip gave out.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it turns out lugging large buckets of hot water up and down rickety Chinatown steps, not so great if you've got a bum hip.
Yep.
That makes sense.
My knees are hurting in sympathy for you.
Oh, but they also have like recipes with tea by like several like Michelin star chefs. So there's one with like beef and oolong tea by Tok, strawberries with jellied matcha, Like there's just so many good. This is just a really fantastic, comprehensive book about tea. I can't
Beef and
recommend it.
oolong tea. That's actually really cool because my partner like bought a ginormous bag of oolong tea from Amazon, and it's not very good.
Guess what?
And it's also very big, and we've just been like struggling through it all this time.
You should just make tea eggs. You should make a ton of tea eggs.
I should.
Yeah.
I should. Every time I see that bag, and I put it
because you don't want like too good of tea quality on it for tea eggs, because then that's just a waste of tea.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
Like this sounds like
eggs.
perfect tea egg material.
Tea egg material. Yeah, there's still so much left, and it's too smoky. Where you're that overwhelms like everything else.
But that would actually work great if you were to steam it with brisket.
Yeah, I think that would make a really good brisket. Or you could do like a sauce reduction.
Don't know
you could.
What either of these things mean.
Oh, Jackie and I are like, so reduction is basically like, so you brew the tea, you brew it pretty strong, and then you like put it in a pan with like other ingredients, and then you kind of like reduce it. Hence
until
reduction.
It's about half usually. That's and
then you can use it as a sauce or a glaze, like on beef or whatever else you think could like go really well with it. And you can add things like spices, like with a tea like that. I think like you can make like an interesting 5-spice like barbecue sauce situation.
I mean, alternatively, you could also grind the dried tea leaves into a powder and use it as a part of a dry rub as well.
Yeah,
that is an alternative.
Yeah.
And that could also reinforce the smokiness for the brisket, especially if you're doing for something that's going to be like low and slow, like a brisket, for example. That would be great for that. Or you could also do it with pork shoulder. That also works as well, because pork can handle the smokiness.
Oh, Becky, the master chef here.
Yeah,
you could also
welcome to our cooking podcast.
You could also do like a tea smoked thing, which would be pretty good, like a tea smoked duck or a tea smoked chicken.
You could do the chicken for sure. You could actually do a tea dunk, like a tea, you know how you would do like drunken chicken. You could do it with tea instead.
Yeah, just like add it to that marinade, let it sit, really seep it in.
Actually, funny enough, one of the fried chicken places I frequent, they actually brine their chicken in tea. So you can do that. You can brine your chicken in tea before you decide to either roast it, fry it, however.
This is this is great. I'm gonna look up ways to cook with that giant bag.
Yeah, I used to do tea. I used to make like a kelp, like a green tea and kelp tea, and then I would serve that with very soft glutinous rice, and then I would also usually have something like a one of those like pork bellies that have been basically like braised for like hours to the point where it's just glistening, and you just put that one little piece right in there, and you're just the happiest little bean ever.
My gosh.
One day, I think we should all get together in one location, make food.
So what I'm hearing is y'all are gonna come in my house, and
you
Jackie just takes over my kitchen.
It's fine.
I think you are the most central. Like if it's
all of us except
I believe
Liana.
so, yeah. Well, I'm on the West Coast, so
everything's far.
Everything's far. It's just how it goes. I will actually visit Massachusetts as opposed to Florida. I'm very sorry, Jackie.
No one wants to come to Florida.
I will never go to Florida again.
I think we start every episode dunking on Florida.
There's
the Kara-Tur tradition.
Kara-Tur tradition. We dunk on Florida and then start complaining about how bad in Oregon.
Is Florida the Kara-Tur of America?
I mean, look, we're still competing against Australia, but which one is more deadly?
Oh, yikes. But speaking of Kara-Tur, welcome everyone to This is Asians Read Kara-Tur. And today we have a really special episode because we're not actually reading through Kara-Tur, in spite of what our name says. Because we've been dunking on the book like every month that we've written, like to more or less extent, like some of the chapters some of the pages, not chapters, are better, but it's last time we decided to put our mouth where the money is. That's the
money
where our mouth is.
Put the money where our mouth.
Other way around.
Put the money where our mouth is. As it
We're gonna talk the walk.
we're gonna do that and make a town/village. I think village, right? We're gonna make a village of our own and give an example of like what is a better way of coming up with a setting as opposed to the things that we have seen within Kara-Tur. So we all kind of assigned each other or we assigned ourselves different aspects of this village. I don't know if we want to like briefly go over each of us like what we have come up with and then continue that way, or if we want to like I think that's probably better because I think we have a tendency of like really getting into one aspect of something and then I don't want what someone has come up with to be lost because we were like too engaged with another aspect. So let's all go through what we have and then we can like it's a quiet village. We can what?
Beauty and the Beast.
Every day like the one before.
Yep, I saw that coming.
Little town. Okay, we're gonna get sued by the mouse. I'll stop.
But yeah, we should also say like we've been doing a little bit of building before stream, but haven't finalized a lot of it.
Yeah, and we wanted to keep doing these on
the ultimate goal is we will release these slices and then we'll hit kind of other regions too, so we'll have some nice towns that you can sort of insert into your setting that'll be a bit more culturally sensitive than the kind of work that Wizards was putting out in the 1980s.
Yeah. So I guess Liana, do you want to start with like what you have?
Yeah. Did we want to kind of go over what everyone was assigned? Because I got the list up real quick.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do that.
Because Daniel, who unfortunately could not join us, which means we get to make fun of him the entire stream, and he can't say anything.
It's true.
Dan exploding peaches Quan. We love you.
To be fair though, this does remind me of that one time I did try to make for alcohol from peaches, but we'll not get into that either.
That's why you're like,
no.
exploding peaches. I understand.
Hashtag mood.
But Daniel, and I think we'll be able to go over his segment too, because he did leave us some notes, was working in kind of the tavern and restaurant, which is obviously the central gathering place. My focus in particular was kind of the trade roads and industry. I haven't really gotten into the roads yet since we're still finalizing locales and things like that, but I've at least put together a fun NPC and workshop, which I'll be happy to share.
Yeah. And so for mine, it's like social relationships and the social structure, organizational structure of the village. What about you, Emma?
I was focusing on, I suppose, the more natural surroundings. So I was doing the ecological setting, especially looking at the types of plants that would be appropriate to the location that we chose, so I can sort of fill out the actual landscape and the resources that people would be using besides the agricultural species, like stuff going on, like the cultivated species.
Michelle? Oh, sorry.
And that's where I come in. I am the cultivated cultivated animals and plant section. So I'm here for all your farm and agricultural nerding out as far as, and also like animal husbandry. We haven't really touched on in this area yet. I'm very excited to discuss that with folks.
Yeah.
And I'm covering mercantile with all my years of retail and trauma.
Oh no, Jackie!
No, Jackie!
No. Oh, I just realized that.
Retail and trauma are just two things that kind of go together.
Oh my
Look,
gosh.
15 years of working in retail, of knowing the front end, the back end, and every process of shipping and handling is enough to last a lifetime.
Do you want to hug, Jackie?
Long range.
Long range.
Yeah.
Just...
Yeah.
But yeah, I get to cover the viability of how businesses work and how we can develop industry out of all the elements that exist in the village, whether it be natural or something from like a shop or something that's enterprising as a family just coming in and building something.
I just realized that I came up with an NPC that kind of is, because I totally forgot about the different categories when I was writing. So we can like, I'm open to like changing the nature of that specific NPC, which we will get into, since that is under your purview, Jackie. But let's go back to Liana. So, what you got?
So, kind of my first major project. As we continue on, my hope is to work more on kind of like the logging industry and stuff. But I wanted to establish a very central workshop blacksmith. The idea of this village is that it's rather remote, so they don't really have a lot in the way of natural iron or replenishable iron that they mine themselves. And Daniel actually made this wonderful suggestion that I've kind of run with, where the Zhou, I believe is the pronunciation. I'm unfortunately not Chinese, so I'm trying to pick names that seem appropriate, but the final cultural sign off will have to fall to Daniel, Agatha, or Jackie. But this workshop, the idea is it's a very central location to the village, because Zhou Hu, the proprietor, she can pretty much fix anything. If it's iron or steel, she can reforge it. You know, if it's broken wood, she can mend it or carve something new to go in there. Even if it's stone, she can patch it up, or she can kind of recarve it. Anything that breaks in the town basically goes to her. So, and she is something of an orphan, in that a pestilence hit the village and wiped out pretty much, I think we're talking an entire generation, including her parents. But even though she is the kind of the sole surviving heir, she's really mastered and moved forward the art that her family has been practicing in this village for so long. So kind of a day in her life is like she'll kind of leisurely walk to her workshop, where she gets mobbed by all of the local children who want their toys fixed. And then she'll spend a few hours in the morning fixing all the toys before she opens. And then when she opens, you know, there's just a mob of other villagers who want their tools or their furniture fixed. So, you know, they'll be lining up probably an hour or so before, since they know whoever gets there first is the one whose item she fixes first. And then she just kind of spends all day fixing things that broke, and after that, you know, gives everyone their stuff and has the tavern to take a load off afterward.
Nice.
I love it.
Oh, it's so cute. I can't. Ooh. I think I can go next, since I also wrote down just going down the direction in this way. So in terms of social relationships and like the social structure of this village, so Liana came up with the idea that there was a pestilence that hit this village 7 years ago, and I expanded on that and added another pestilence that is a much longer time ago, but the one 7 years ago was not the first one, and because of this, like the village's population is like not very robust, and the village kind of has a way of like raising their children through the whole village, and then everyone, it's like, so it's less so the way that people view their kids is less proprietary. It's more like everyone is like helping to raise the kids together, because we have to it's vital that they survive so that we can keep, you know, passing on our family lines, our traditions, and so on, for the survival of the town. So like a lot of times people will just like and this, you can really see this during meal times, where it's like people, like kids don't have to like go home to like eat. It's just wherever you are closest to you, oftentimes they'll just like set out more food for you as well. And or if you are a family that is more well off at the moment, so you have more resources, you would end up feeding more kids. And this doesn't apply to adults. Adults, like you, that is the aspect where it's like you are responsible for your own like well-being generally, but like kids is a different story. And this town, I mean this village, I have written that it's kind of like, because it's so small and they're like so intent on like their survival and passing on of like just like continuing, that they are also like very clear about who is a newcomer and or an outsider. I mean, I think we can go into like the nuances of that, right? Like once you're like married into like a family in town, that's probably a different story versus if you're just like someone who moved here but doesn't have any kind of like connection in a way to everyone in town. Then that's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, we accept you, but we will always like kind of like talk about it like you are a newcomer to the town, even if you've been living here like for your whole life basically.
That's like, oh yeah, you weren't here for this, or you would have any family that knows about or experience this.
Yeah, and then people will be like, yeah, this is such a like a Zhou thing, and then like and it's just like, okay. Yeah, so and the way that like leadership works in this village is that it's very much by like the older you are, the more respected you are, and the more weight that your words hold, because it's just such an achievement to be able to get old, that you like wisdom is associated with you, and I guess it's just like a respect almost like for being able to survive this. And associated with that is one of the NPCs that I came up with is Grandmother Zhou, who is at a ripe old age of 67. And she's the survivor of 2 pestilences, the one from 7 years ago and then another one when she was just 5. She's like short and like has like these like wizened sinewy limbs, and is the kind of person that is like very small, but then it's like surprisingly strong and fast for her age. I guess it's not surprising if you think about it, like village life, everyone needs to like do a lot of physical labor, but she's definitely the kind where like you don't want to mess with her because of her social standing, but you also don't want to mess with her because if she thinks you need a you need a spanking, well, good luck. Yeah, she's always found in the village center under this big cypress tree, and this is actually, I'm open to this like for negotiation in terms of like landmarks within the village and stuff like that, holding court over villagers. But she definitely holds court over the villagers somewhere who come to her with like their concerns and like their squabbles, and then she's the one who has the final word on like how things should be decided and so on. She's hard of hearing, and her catchphrase is, "Huh? Speak louder." And she refers
that's a mood.
Yeah, she refers to everyone in the village as child, because literally everyone is younger than her, so she gets to do that if she wants. Yeah, and she has a favorite child, but I again don't know if we how you feel about it, Jackie, because that person is kind of like I made him to be kind of like a trader merchant kind of person, but it's up for negotiation.
I think it's good to well, for a thriving trade in any village, you need some competition. So having like more than one merchant like running a business in a village will definitely keep it from being a full monopoly, and would definitely encourage a little bit of that nice little bit of banter, where I can just imagine where it's like, I have a merchant stall right here, and versus the one that's been built up from like 3 generations of family members who's like, how dare you?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
there needs to be something to encourage more and more contact with outside locations to build those trade contacts and drive sort of exploratory as much as like this is who we've always dealt with kind of thing.
I feel like though I think that might fit still with the family I built, because the eldest son does have to make trade deals to get like, especially to like import like fabrics and other things that aren't easily accessible that are available in this village. Like there's a lot of wood, as we said, there's a river, so you can do a lot of agriculture there, and you can definitely export animals for the farming and husbandry. But a lot of like when we said already that iron has to be brought in, so that we know has to be an import. So that's one of the imports that needs to be coming in. Maybe certain fabrics, because maybe we don't have, because we live in such a wet environment, we may not have as access to a lot of linens that are available, and so we might need to bring that in as well. So it just comes down to what we could list out, like things that should come in and what we can send out as a village.
Yeah,
there was actually a question in the chat about how important the village is and where it sits on a major trade route. And I think based on sort of how we've been putting this together, I would say that the village is considered somewhat remote in that it's not a main stopover. Like if you are running your main trade routes, you're probably not going to stop here, but there are roads to it, because especially like with the teas, which Michelle will be getting into a bit later, there are products that are coming out of this town that are luxury items that would be highly desired in more affluent circles, and some unique crafts and things like that. So they're kind of an arterial trade route in which merchants can access it, and it's not too hard to get to, but they're not a main hub or anything like that, and which if they were, they would be much larger.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of like a modern UNESCO World Heritage Site is sort of, I feel like, what we're building here.
Yeah, more or less.
It's not like a major city, but like we make stuff here that no one else does.
Yeah, and I feel like oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because the family that I made, they're like one of the other families that founded the village, and I added in where, because the shop's called the Twin Crowned Woodpecker, because there are actually, I could change it in my description, but I had wooden birdhouses lining up on a tree, and that's like the part of like the family's like mark in the village of like, this is how we build our legacy through the village. We build a birdhouse.
Wow, so fancy. Yeah. That's really interesting to think about how they were hit during the pestilence. The pestilences, I guess. And I'll just go into very briefly the other NPC that I came up with, and then we can actually hop into like Jackie, what you have. So the character, so Grandmother Zhou's favorite child is Taro, and Taro is 31, and is
He's a baby.
Just a child. The village, I wrote it as like the village's local boy made big, where he's been establishing like new trade routes or like new sales opportunities with the nearby big towns. Nearby, I don't know what distance that actually is, but it's just closer, whatever is closer to the village. He's kind of like that sort of like self-made man, like young man kind of vibe, like, you know, he's like slick and then like is very confident, and then sometimes it comes off often, I think, as arrogant. So the village is of two minds about him. Like some people are like, yeah, like he's bringing bringing opportunities to our town, or like bringing money or goods, and then other people are like, okay, but he thinks he's all that, and he's not all that. The thing is, though, that Grandmother Zhou loves him, so he will always get kind of like a favored sort of spot when it comes to like decisions about the village, or, you know, like whatever the yearly celebration meal thing is.
Now, is he something of an outsider or kind of a non-family? Because he doesn't have a family surname, which I thought was very interesting in his design.
Oh yeah, I was too lazy to come up with a surname. He definitely does have one. I think his last name is probably just Zhou. like everyone else. Yeah. I feel like sometimes the way the naming conventions are, like some of them is like it's like it's not transliteration either. It's just like where you just translate the sound, and then sometimes you translate the meaning of the word from like, you know, whatever language. So I feel like Taro is one of those like where there is like a Chinese equivalent, but it's just translated to Taro. We could decide on if we want to make everything just like be actually pinyin or not. But anyway, Taro is a local boy. Is a village. I wrote it as the village's local boy made big. So definitely actually related to almost everyone.
Cool. Yeah.
Love that. I'm just reading something in the document.
Yeah, no, I've been like adding things and adjusting things in the document.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Did we want to have Emma talk a bit about the topography, maybe?
Yeah, let's talk about the
that will help me come up
cultivated plants.
The basic surroundings. Yeah. So I have been leaving some of this to like formalize later. Kind of want to hear what people want to do, because we decided on a wooded mountainous area next to a fair-sized river if we're going to have like milling happening, and also trade routes and other things. You do need a decent floodplain in these areas if you want agriculture. So rivers are good. Sorry about the cat, but if everyone could see that.
It's fine.
But then the other thing was we wanted this to be actually not a specific place within China, but realistic and appropriate to an actual location. Because one of the things we were having a problem with Kara-Tur is like, this is a big old mashup of stereotypes and concepts. This isn't a single place, or their inspiration wasn't very focused. And so based on Daniel's suggestion, or what he was thinking and everyone kind of agreed to, was this idea of mountainous and river is the Fujian province. So subtropical, and so many options for what kind of landscape we're looking at. And for me, landscape includes all of the plants and the people and what they've done to it. So we have our mountains for the tea, and then we have a lot of forest in the area that can be used. And then for me, it's like, I will plop down whatever plants we want in there that are appropriate. But we know for sure that taro grows just about everywhere. It's happy. Not the person, the plant.
The plant. Yes, the plant.
This one man
he grew up quite a bit too. So
yeah. Perfect. But I wanted the foundation to be something that could also be a high quality or something special that makes this place worth setting up shop in, literally and generationally. And Fujian is known for its species of cypress.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a specific species of tree that it's quite well known for. And cypress in general across, I know in Japan at least, but also parts of China and probably other areas, cypress is very aromatic. It has a very distinct and beautiful, strong smell. So it's often prized for arts and crafts and special health related products. Like I know in parts of Japan they make massagers out of them because it's like aromatherapy plus, I don't know, muscle relaxant kind of stuff. It's medicinal if you use the roots and get the oil out of it. It's good for smoking for foods because it gives it a particular flavor. But also now it all kind of works out, this idea of a pestilence, because cypress is also sometimes referred to as coffin wood. Its strong scent makes it great for making coffins out of. And so this could be something interesting to work with. What else? Cypress is also like high density wood, so it's really good for charcoal.
Yeah,
which is great for industry. And
food.
And food. And all in all, this is just like
Jackie.
we have a river, we have good natural resources. Like this is a place, and a lot of settlements, the ones that are long standing, are ones that can be found at the confluence of 2 to 3 major ecozones. So like mountain, forest, and river. This is a great place to set up what we're doing. And then the idea of this like high story forest with a break that happens when you get into the village. There are so many things that could be happening in there, like all the yams, like long yam, Chinese yam.
Yep.
They would love it. So there's so many food options. We could get really crazy with the cuisine here.
Yeah.
So I'm already writing down dishes. If you haven't known, I'm already down to 7.
Nice.
Like that are regionally known.
Jackie will, as usual, make everybody very hungry.
I know.
Before this is done.
I can write out a list of like economic plants that are appropriate to this area that we could then play around with for dishes. But then we also are working with Daniel, I think we said this in the stream last time, was thinking of roughly locating this in the Han Dynasty for inspiration. So if we have things that are appropriate to Han Dynasty, we also have a lot of stuff coming in from the Silk Road trade network. So China and this region are starting to get a lot of things that are not necessarily strictly from that area. So it's totally possible to play around with some things like wheat and grapes. And
that's really interesting. So it seems like with all of these it seems like plants that are economically viable, that sounds like this was a very it was a flourishing village until the pestilence hit, and then it took a huge hit, and then now it's like kind of building its way back up. That's what it sounds like to me.
And I like the idea that there needs to be something that drew people to this location in the first place.
Yeah.
And trade would then develop after. So you need to have all of the building blocks for a sustainable settlement that can grow a little, but also then expand over time. So having like that forest and the natural resources is like great.
Agreed. Yeah.
And then the tea comes later. In terms of fabrics, I don't think this would be a great place for mulberry grows in the area, but I don't think you would want to set up farms of mulberry in order to have silkworms, not in this location. So we're looking at things like hemp.
Hemp,
for
yeah, I was thinking.
local, which is also super important because like I've been reading some papers on like archaeobotany from the Han Dynasty. And a bunch of them in the last few years have been about cannabis and the use of cannabis seed as both food and medicine. But then you're also left with the fibers from the plant. So you could have a great like hemp fabric for local purposes and everyday purposes, while also maybe putting some like medicine in there. Yeah.
Also, nice thing with the lumber, I've kind of, as we've been talking, started to put together the idea of a lumber yard, which you would want to have it sitting on the river so that they can load up barges and send their lumber yields down. Since, especially given the remoteness of the town, sending their lumber via waterway is much more economic than trying to load up a bunch of mule carts and
well, that actually probably helped with the village's prosperity in the beginning, because you didn't have to load up carts, you didn't have to feed animals and mules and things like that or oxen to bring it down, because and so you would definitely save on that alone, and then you would just need to have a barge or just have somebody like a couple people just riding along with the wood to wherever they go downriver, which I think I did write somewhere in the storefronts, like beginnings of like how the business flourished because of the lumber yard. So yeah, you got that, and then because of that, people would come back upwards to bring in trade, because then when they came back, they would bring in the goods. So in the beginning, when trade was starting, it would make sense that the people who came down would go to those towns, buy things, bring it back to the village as the initial start of the trade, and then as time went on, other places went, well, why don't we just go to them and get our money instead of them coming to us?
Yeah. And then so I've been working on an idea for a collection of NPCs with one main one, and then like not faceless and nameless, but some ones that are a little more flexible, like you could give them whatever characteristics you want. But the main character I've been thinking of related to this is essentially a forest warden. So ancient setting, and industry could easily get out of hand, and the livelihood of this village and also its character and its roots are connected to this forest. And so there should be like a local protection group, people who are concerned about the balance of the forest and the other species within it. And they could easily come in conflict with, those people that want to expand like their use of charcoal and so want to take more trees, or the loggers who want to take more than they should from particular areas, and the wardens are there to kind of keep track of that. And I kind of wanted to put like a middle-aged dude who's over it all in charge of a bunch of really young and enthusiastic and idealistic junior wardens who kind of like do all of the work, but he's the one who coordinates them.
They're basically like a bunch of park rangers.
Like, we're gonna save the forest. Yeah.
Honestly, that's super interesting. I may be able to help you out with that. My grandfather actually was a forest ranger for the Montana region, so we have a lot of his writing. He actually helped some of his junior rangers get approval for and carve out a trail within the forest. So
amazing. Yeah. And then because we'll also need to factor in that if Michelle wants a sizable like empire legacy here.
Oh, I don't really know about necessarily that big.
Nothing big, but
about it. Yeah,
I'd say a legacy doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be established that there is a relationship between the wardens and the people who are constantly cutting through the woods up into the mountains with their little tea plantations tucked away within the natural settings. So
and it's just sort of like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, we're like, we have an agreement, just don't mess around. You got your tea plot.
It's just like we have I think that makes sense. I'd love to discuss that a little bit more.
Yeah, Michelle, why don't we get into
I just added a whole bunch of sections to I just added an agricultural and animal husbandry section, and I put down hemp, which I think is a really fantastic addition. and we can definitely build that out. I also added fishing, domestic animals, and seasonal crops, because I think that's something that's a little less sexy than like tea, because it's a luxury item. But I think it's also good to go into, you know, like how does this village do things other than a luxury product? Because obviously that's the thing. But so the first thing I added for agricultural and animal husbandry was tea. When Daniel talked about this being in the Fujian province, like being inspired by the Fujian province and the fact that it's subtropical, I have a background in tea. I used to work at a Red Blossom tea store in Chinatown, San Francisco, and became very well versed in like the different kinds of tea and the different productions. And I thought it would be a really nice thing to have sort of a slightly one, to introduce this item that requires a lot of production, a lot of work, but that's a little bit on the rarer side. That could be a point of attraction for people coming to visit. People who are looking to source teas may come out here and try, you know, what the newest harvest is, you know, what maybe make suggestions to the production, smoke this a little more, roast this a little less. And so what I did is I wanted to create like a family or two that lives basically on the top of this mountain. They live next to their tea gardens, and they are the ones who are responsible for the cultivation and the production of these teas that are well known in this region. So basically I'm going to say, like, I don't think that their plantations are very large because they are done by two families, 2 or 3 families maybe. So it's not particularly all that big, but they are renowned for producing 2 specific kinds of tea that are endemic to the region and are some of my favorite teas. The first is a winter sprout. So this is something that you can find actually in real life, where people will actually pick tea sprouts just as they're starting to bud in late winter, before spring really hits. And what this does is that the timing of this basically maximizes the amount of sugar within these tea leaves. And so when you roast it, when you go put it through production, when you oxidize it, it creates this kind of very beautiful, buttery, cotton candy, like the sweet grass flavor. That is amazing and incredibly luxurious. I find it, and I like to think that it can be very rejuvenating. It's also fantastic iced. The second one I wanted to kind of go into was an aged tea, something that's very much like a pu'er. So they have a different plantation for this, and then they basically process these teas, they press them into cakes, and these cakes are aged. And one thing I also wanted to kind of delve into a little bit and maybe push a little bit with the tea as well was the idea of tea and agriculture intersecting with magic a little bit. So we haven't really discussed very much about how much we want there to be fantastical magical elements as part of this place, but I like to think that, you know, tea, especially in Asian settings all over the continent, it's universal and it's often used in so many different ways, medicinal being absolutely one of them. And so I like to think that these families might also have like a potions book of some kind where it's like, if you prepare this particular tea, you pluck it at this particular time, you brew it in this way with these sorts of ingredients, you can produce something really interesting. And yeah, something about being up in these mountains could be really mystical and interesting, which is why I was thinking, like, for example, with the pu'er tea, because it's aged, like maybe that tea can retain the memories of that family. So perhaps that could be a link to the past for my NPC, who I will introduce in a second, as they try to navigate like shouldering this enormous tradition and heritage on their back as they are the last person in their family, the oldest person in their family to keep this thing going, to keep this whole production going. So the NPC I created for this particular tea related section. They are non-binary, and they're a huge nerd. They were not expecting this to happen, but I think that in many ways, the loss of the last generation has really made them really kind of close in on themselves quite a bit. So there's not a lot of sense of their mission in life right now. Their number one priority is to keep things going, is to keep this tea and like the family and the tea going. They are one and the same for them. They are very quiet. They're not super talkative. They're really bright, but they are clearly very overworked and very stressed out. And they're very like slim but lithe. I'd say they have like almost like a dancer sort of like body type. And I think that they also have just a very they're really loyal to their family. They don't feel like they have the luxury of putting themselves first right now. So like, for example, I wrote that they have feelings for someone outside of the tea family community that they were looking to get maybe with, but before the pestilence, but now the pestilence happened and they can't act on those feelings anymore. Like that's no longer they feel like that's no longer an option for them. And they have to put their heritage and their family first. So very much, yeah, I don't know. I like adding drama. I like dropping some tea with my tea.
and that's honestly, it's important to define how these families who've lost generation in this pestilence, how they've responded.
Yeah.
You know,
it seems like the Shou family is like resilient and doing really well, and this other family is struggling.
Almost falling apart at the seams where because that is something that comes with pestilence, and how a community rebounds. I kind of put in the notes that very likely the pestilence would have probably wiped out 50% of the villagers, of the population, especially if it was targeting kind of that generation of not necessarily the very young, but kind of that middle age type, striking down so many of these workers in their prime. It leaves their children who were just coming of age to really pick up the pieces of the society and figure out how to maintain or move forward with what they're left with.
And this particular individual, they're basically the main guardian of this family. They are the eldest of this family to have survived. No one.
You said they were 24?
They're 24.
So they were 17, right?
Zhou is 26, and with the pestilence having been 5 years ago.
I thought it was 7.
Or 7 years, excuse me. So she would have been 19, which is a bit older than 17. So even that those few years really do matter at that age too. So
yeah, so this person is just like they are just closed in. They're single-minded. They've accepted a reality where what they want no longer matters. It's about the preservation of the group, of their family. So it could be a really compelling, interesting, emo, moody figure in the background. Moody tea person
sitting in the corner of a tavern is a black.
Is a moody tea person.
Like they just come in with their like black coat hat and their like earth tones, just like, I'm here to drop off the shipment.
Everyone knows the sound of their sigh.
Yeah.
And then they just leave.
Love it. I love it.
But yeah, other things that I thought would be really fun to be considering our surroundings as provided by Emma. So I would love to look into fishing. I know that fishing farms, that could be a really interesting thing to look into, depending, of course, on how rapidly these rivers go. Like that's the thing I think we need to decide, like, is this river pretty chill or is this like a super intense river?
With the barges, if they're floating lumber down, that means it's a pretty navigable.
Yeah, like it's very low chop. It shouldn't be very, unless it's like probably, we have to think about seasonal weather and storms. How
seasonal,
that would affect that.
Seasonal crops is another thing that I had here, where we could just talk a little bit about like rice and like what irrigation systems have been set into place to flood specific areas in order to account for that production, as well as, you know, how much of this village is actually growing crops as opposed to foraging. Like, I think that given that the forest and the mountain are nearby, foraging is 100%, like foraging and hunting, I think are both like very big parts of it. So
especially seasonally, like crops at this point, if we're looking like Han Dynasty, they're going to be a combination of like staple growing, like grains and things, and then not straight up arboriculture, but manipulation of existing like fruit and nut plants or trees around, and then complete foraging of things that everyone knows where they are and how to get them, and may even promote their growth. But I think some of the actual crops themselves are going to be fairly like basic in a way.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I think like rice is definitely one of them.
We are in the south.
The yams, and in the yams too. So like, so the yams, the rice.
Is it possible?
You don't really need to
rice.
You don't
in
need
the
to.
Oh.
Not in the mountains, but if we have a floodplain,
okay,
should be good. But that's also something that this village doesn't have to grow, because at this point rice is ubiquitous. Like, that could be a standard trade item.
Yeah,
true.
And like, yams don't need to be cultivated; those babies grow on their own.
Yeah, that's true. They just get foraged. They're like, we just go and get them.
But like for Fujian, like, I think not specific to that place, but they do make like a little wheat cake. That's a big deal there. So if they are growing wheat, wheat is more of like a cold and dry resistant crop, but it can also do okay in like a floodplain, as long as you plant the right time, because we are looking at a sort of like typhoon zone.
Right.
If not, it's full on typhoon, but it's like heavy rains for a month or so on a regular basis.
I'm wondering, would soybean be at all a thing here?
Sure.
Cool.
Soybeans could be one. I was thinking for the kind of mountainous climate, I was trying to think like, would there be, what kind of fruits would grow in that kind of environment?
Oh, lots and lots
of forest fruits. I imagine like
even if they are brought
peaches
in, but like peaches and plums, pomegranate will grow in the area. Loquats?
Loquats.
I think I'm going to add this to the topology ecology section, just because I think that the delineating factor here should be like things that humans
naturally grow,
things that naturally grow, things that humans have a hand in. So hunting maybe should also go up. Thank you so much.
I have a list of like
amazing
natural species that are in the area, and then in this box are ones that were usually cropped and appropriate to the Han Dynasty.
Wow.
So I think
this is what I do. I'm a plant person. Like, I'm an paleo ethnobotanist is what I get called. So
we'll definitely make sure to include these tables in the finalized document.
Give me a region and say figure out plants, and I'm like, okay.
I love it. So I think for hunting, you would definitely get deer, boar, rabbit, probably wild pheasant. I think that's sort of the general thing in this area. We might get the occasional goat, although further up we get goat.
Goat and sheep in general are really solid domesticates that I think were used across regions. So cattle is a little more difficult because they be big.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be more working animals than they would be.
Yeah, I'm gonna
else.
put like water buffalo most definitely down here, and I can see there being sheep as a domestic animal because they're so dumb.
Those poor things.
They are so. Okay, if y'all don't know anything about growing sheep, sheep are dumb.
I watched an entire video of them shearing sheep, so yes,
they will essentially die in so many ways if you're not careful.
My favorite sheep is, do you know about Shrek the sheep, the one that escaped?
Yes, the one that escaped and was gone for 18 years.
He just became a massive mountain of wool.
That's actually one of my favorite things to watch on YouTube, are just videos of sheep that have escaped and they come back and they're just like
huge,
like spherical.
Yeah, because we've now domesticated to the point where they rely on us to help them shear the wool off.
Oh my god!
So the wool doesn't stop like it should.
So we basically domesticated them to that point now. So now they won't stop growing the wool no matter what.
Yeah, and they just become like walking rocks across the landscape.
Yeah,
and
eventually
stuck in things, and they can't get their head down to eat because they're so packed with wool. It's
So they either starve to death or they get overheated from their own wool,
or they die due to skin. Skin infections.
Skin infections.
Because the wool will pull on their skin, the weight of it.
Well, because then it starts interlocking, and then when it gets wet, when it gets dirty, it fuses with it gets mold. A lot of terrible things happen.
Sheep, they need help.
They
need our help.
We kind of did that
except for the one that escaped for 18 years and was fine.
But then he came back because he came back. He came back.
He came back. He couldn't get his head down to eat, and I think he got wedged in a cave.
Yes, he got wedged in a cave. He was spelunking.
Of course,
someone found him.
He got stuck in a cave between a couple of stalagmites. Yeah, it was real bad.
All said though, 18 years on your own, that's a pretty.
It's an achievement that sheep survived as long as it did.
That sheep very clearly had some class levels in rogue or fighter.
Ranger. And ranger, I think. Yeah, just survival, just straight up survival.
Put all the skill ranks into survival.
So
that's all they did.
Is we're creating a new class, not a class, a new I guess race type. I don't know, species type. Sheepkin.
There we go.
Yeah.
But all that to say, there would be sheep here.
There would be most definitely sheep. But the other thing too is because we are in a mountainous forest area, I imagine that there is an option here for a fur trade.
Yes,
if we want,
there is an option for that.
Yes, so I was just gonna pop that in there. That is just a thing that can happen. So I'm thinking ermine. What else? Deer. What is tanuki? Is tanuki a thing?
Well, I mean, the thing is though, a lot of the animal skin can still be converted to leather. So
so
deer hide would ultimately end up leather, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Okay. If you want stuff like pelts, I would have to look into it because, like I said, I'm a plant person, but muskrat, if we have river.
Yeah. Muskrat for sure. I think.
What a name, muskrat.
But definitely like ermine. For sure in this
especially
area.
Wooded areas. Foxes. Because with something like a cypress forest, you're getting really, like I said, high canopy, and then underneath that is just thick ferns.
Yeah.
Would this be a region that would have beavers along the river, or is it too
North America?
Different climate?
Beavers.
Dude, we could just put beavers in here. I'm down for beavers.
I mean, I'm fine with beavers because I know how to make dishes with beavers. I know how to use the pelts. I know how to use the beavers.
I
was just like, I think they're cute, and then Jackie's like, I'm gonna eat them.
I'm gonna eat that. Yeah, we could have it as an invasive species.
Oh, we can.
Beavers would cause problems for the village because if they're damming up the river, it's hard to get the barge through.
It's a pestilence of beavers,
and they eat the trees, so they're destroying valuable merchandise.
They are the pest.
I mean, to be fair, most beavers are pests.
I think that we should say, like, one of the lowest insults that you can give to someone in this village region is that they're a beaver.
Oh
my gosh.
Yes,
like,
that is a great insult.
50% of the arbitrations that Grandmother Zoe has to deal with is people calling each other beavers.
Yes. Call me the son of a beaver. I don't deserve that.
I've been a valuable contributing member of this community. Thank you very much.
We're giving these people a lot of problems here.
Well,
what kind of village doesn't have drama?
They're people. Well, they have to have problems.
And this is for in RPG. A ideal RPG town is one that has numerous problems that they're working through but cannot resolve on their own. That's the reason why adventurers come to these villages to help out.
Speaking of which, do we have ideas for adventure hooks? Because there was a section.
Well, so there's the pestilence, right? So we mentioned about the pestilence, and then I thought about the fact that that we could have, if we, depending on how supernatural we were going, we could also have obviously the dead rising as a problem. And then because we mentioned the coffin wood, and I was like, well, of course we got to do Jiangxi, and then we got to mention about the Taoist priests having to be there. And I was like, well, wait, if there's a Taoist priest in the village, where's the rest? How did they get there? And then, and I was like, oh wait, are we gonna have a discussion about religion?
I will say, because we've been discussing dire beaver regular beavers, I want dire beavers.
Dire beavers, yes.
So like that's where you want
as a potential adventure hook, exterminating the dire beavers will definitely be a thing, since they would probably make extremely large dams, and because dire animals are dangerous, it's not necessarily something that the village would have, especially reeling as they are from a pestilence. They wouldn't have the manpower to.
Yeah, like the warden wouldn't be able to handle all of that, the problems of the dire beaver by themselves.
I just especially when the dire beaver.
He big, he chonk, he gonna eat your face and family. Thank you.
Well, bunch of trees.
I mean, when I'm thinking about it, because like the dire beaver's got to be at least the size of a boar.
I was thinking like a beaver the size of a small school bus. Honestly.
Yeah, I'm thinking like at least a bear, if not bigger.
That's
bear. Okay, yeah.
Can you? How big are those teeth?
Oh, they're big.
They're big. They will chomp.
Big enough.
I think there were megafauna beavers. For reference, there are like dire beaver species that existed.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so I think I want to say like those chompers must be enough to like break through the trunks of like even the thickest cypress trees, like that've been there for like generations.
I like this idea of like one day he built his dam far into the mountain, like upstream, way upstream. So the village down there, they're like, "What's up with the river? It is not going anywhere. It's stagnant." And like, what is going on? So they like send a couple of people up there, and these poor folks lose their lives to the dire beaver, who's just like with mighty thwacks of its tail can make the ground quake.
I just linked an image of an actual giant beaver to scale. So I think because this is fantasy, we can go even bigger.
Wow, that is that is what I was originally expecting for a dire beaver. But yeah, okay, we can make it bigger.
Since that actually existed, let's have some fun with this.
Let's go fantasy.
For anyone who's listening, so the original actual giant beaver was about 1.8 meters tall, or roughly close to 4 feet tall.
And we're talking about something that's about like the size of a small school bus.
So that's even more terrifying.
It is more terrifying. I was thinking, originally I was thinking like
the actual
Nicobus.
creature that existed, the tooth's about as big as a human's hand. So
oh my gosh.
So that means that means that the dire version's got to be at least as long as a person's full legs, like an average person's legs.
No, this is why
it literally is like a 1-2 chomp.
This is why this village keeps staying as a village, in spite of all its amazing possible cash crops, or not cash crops, but you know what I mean. Like there are so many ways that it can prosper, but dire beavers.
Well, maybe that's the reason why it's like it has a connection to like wild magic. That's one of the reasons why it's tea and it's like cypress and like the props.
Oh no! Am I gonna have to do like a whole feng shui topography thing with on top of this as well?
I was actually thinking like, ooh, what if we like plant the tea gardens in a way that like it could, if you like if there's like certain things the family could like activate, it becomes like a ward. So like like people like, I don't know, if the dire beaver tries to come to the tea gardens, they could be like, boom, wall. Like that.
Does anybody remember what plants deter beavers?
I
don't think they exist.
But I love this trick because you could design like a layer, because I don't know if you know much about like how beavers construct their dams, but you could have like the adventurers like go like, there's like parts of the dam that are above water, parts of the dam that are below water, like little chambers. So maybe like this wild magic is causing like weird stuff to happen, like this dire beaver.
I like the idea that a dire beaver isn't just always around.
Right.
That I don't know, beavers came in as invasive species, so there's regular ones. And then every so often, when everything lines up in the right or wrong way, you get a dire beaver.
Oh my gosh, that's the perfect adventure hook.
Yeah. It's like, and you could, we could totally design like a
beaver
little
dam
map.
layer.
Like a beaver map, like a dam layer map.
Beaver dam map. Oh gosh.
Inside the lair of the dire beaver.
The sad part is that beaver layer is probably as intricate as a large Han Dynasty's family home.
Yes.
There's a lot of chambers.
And I imagine you could find like some real cool loot in there, maybe.
From other adventurers who failed miserably.
Who have died, or I don't know, something might have washed downstream and just got stuck in it.
True. Yeah, that's also true. It probably hoarded it and was like, oh, this fits the dam very nicely. Pat.
Yes.
Oh,
just picks up this like amazing shield that I don't know has like incredible arcane powers. It's just like, it's like that scene when Tony Stark just picks up Captain America's shield, and then she's like, what just it?
It's like, hey, this fits perfectly. This is exactly what I needed.
Yeah. So I looked into it quickly. There is one species of beaver within the modern China region. It is from the north, so it could be an invasive species, though it could be like totally possible.
Oh yeah, there we go.
So our ridiculousness has basis. We can support this.
We can support this.
And yeah, I mean,
I'm so writing the lair of the dire beaver adventure.
Please do.
I'm already committed.
Also, Michelle, I love that your note you specifically added to the dire beaver section. Very large beaver dam lair.
Yes. We need to like emphasize that this is a very big dam.
Which I will casually just bold it just as a reminder.
Very large.
Large.
Keep it.
Daniel's gonna come back like expecting this lovely, quaint little village to be like, beaver?
Yeah. He's like, I made a tavern. It's
Roll
great.
a
Here are these
D20.
specific characters, and we're like, dire beavers.
Oh, speaking of which, we should read through his
Daniel's
notes.
stuff.
Yeah.
Does anyone have
the Tiger and Claw is the establishment.
Jackie, do you want to read through it?
Sure, I can read it. Okay, so this is what Daniel wrote. Daniel wrote, there is a saying in this land that people worship good food like they do the gods. No restaurant is more legendary than the Tiger and Crow. Wow, I wrote that wrong. I can't type apparently. The Tiger and Crow. Here, there is no menu and no waiting list. You get a table if the chef likes you, or you bring an interesting ingredient to share. Locals can tell you that the Tiger and Crow is where the heart of the village lies. It is a place of solitary culinary pleasures between the patron and their bowl. Indeed, people from all over visit the Tiger and Crow with the hopes of tasting a bowl of perfect happiness. Almost every dish served in this establishment features slow-cooked soups, liberally seasoned with wild herbs. With their modest tools, the chef creates memorable dishes with ingredients like fungi, river animals like clams, fish, and frog, which I forgot there would be frogs. Bamboo shoots, tea leaves, and wild boar. The Tiger and Crow is a modest single-story building with a glazed red tile roof. The interior features minimalistic decorations and is lit by hanging lanterns. The kitchen can be found in the rear of the building with a path leading to the river's edge. Unending steam bellows from the kitchen, leaving an enticing scent in the air.
I feel like I won't do this because it's Daniel's section, but it's and wild boar and beaver. And beaver.
And beaver.
So we can replace, I don't think there'd be shellfish local, so we could just replace that with beaver.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Shellfish of the land.
Shellfish doesn't make sense. Beaver.
I'm just gonna do. I'm not gonna do a full edit, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do a strike through.
I'm very like, and snails. Oh, snails will totally be a thing.
Oh,
here.
snails, you're right. Oh,
yeah.
Black beans and snail. Yes, my favorite dish of all time.
I've never had that before.
Yeah.
Don't you have 20 of those, Jackie?
Yeah, well, to be fair though, it's either clams or snails because it's always a black bean sauce, but I just love clams or snails. And that reminds me of the summer of 1998. How many snails I ate that year.
I do remember eating escargot and thinking it was fine.
No, these are the river snails. So these are the small black
big.
ones.
Yeah,
they're really tiny. But yeah, I think that year because we visited New York and then I came back home and then Dad made it a couple more times. So I think I must have eaten in that year at least close to 100 river snails.
Oh wow! Okay,
they're just really tiny. It's not a lot.
That's also
are
good in
really
keeping
great.
them. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, periwinkles are really tasty, and I've also had them. They usually they usually pour them out on a plate, and then you get a bunch of toothpicks and just.
Yep. That's what I used to do too.
Oh my gosh, I really miss eating clams. That's not a thing that you can enjoy as freely in Toronto, I find.
No,
but
Toronto seafood scene is weird.
That's the only thing that's good about Florida is the seafood. Is the seafood.
I also have seafood in Boston, but
that's true.
Seattle has better oysters.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I actually miss going to that area for the oysters. My God. I used to get
our fish is also very good. Shellfish and
oh my gosh,
fish.
Emma, we need to.
I just like Kara-Tur, but make it TOUR.
Patreon goal. Subsidize our Kara-Tur.
Oh my god!
Sorry, everybody.
I cannot get that out of. I will never be able to get that out of my head now.
don't apologize. This is great. We came up. I mean, this is what happens when Daniel's away. We don't have his elegance and gravitas. We just come up with things like dire beaver.
Oh my gosh, Kara-Tur.
This is what happens when the reins are loose and we just go.
What if we have a van and we call it the Kara-Tur bus?
Yes.
I hate those.
And Jackie, you need to create a cookbook, and it's called Kara-Tur.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the giant beaver looks down upon this. So true. So, anything else we want to add?
Well, I think this idea of a famous tavern is obviously another reason to bring people into the town. I could just add that. But I like how he kind of went serious.
Oh,
I mean, I was already coming up with at least 5 or 6 dishes if anyone wants to hear what the tavern could potentially make.
I want to know. Feed my hunger.
So wait, okay. So quick question, Emma, do you think Lotus would exist in this area? Okay, great, because that just
If-
means lotus wrapped good things.
If there's enough of the river for it to not be running too fast, lotus
Yeah.
would definitely be there, along with like I don't know what it's called in China, but duck potato. It's like Sagittaria. It's a triangular leaf that makes a
Oh.
little
Okay, yeah.
floating thing. That's usually more swampy areas, but I think lotus would be okay. It
Okay.
well, it kind
Or
of
no.
I know.
it kind of
I know
prefers
how to
like
s-
murky, still.
Oh yeah, it does. So I feel like it probably wouldn't then.
Lotus
But-
maybe not.
It's like shaped like this. It's like water chestnut. Is that what that is?
Oh, that's a
water
Oh yeah,
Caltrop.
water chestnuts. Yeah. Okay, hold on. I got that. I gotta add that now. All right.
No,
so water
it's,
chestnut.
It's
what's it-
but it's
I'm
something
just
else.
gonna look it up. It's something else. So water caltrop that makes the really spiky things
Oh yeah, yeah.
is
that
related to water
watercress or is that
chestnut.
something else?
Oh, okay.
Watercress is
watercress is-
greens.
Okay.
Yeah, it's green.
Yeah, greens.
Oh,
Yeah,
I've
watercress
only
is
had
greens.
the water caltrops then in Taiwan. And I
I'm
didn't-
gonna look up the species name I'm thinking of is Sagittaria latifolia, but I'm gonna look up what the common names are to help everyone out here.
So I will say that with the because we were mentioning charcoal, there is definitely going to be a lot of smoke. There's a lot of smoked meats
Oh my
in here. So that means but that also means cured smoked meats as well. So you got like you got cured pork belly. You have you have sausages, and then you can have charcoal. So that means we can have things like brisket. Well, since we said we didn't have a whole lot of cows, so we're going to skip that. But you can think of like smoked
You would have
wild
venison
boar.
though.
Venison, yes. So smoked venison
We've had
sausages.
ducks,
Oh yeah, we could have ducks.
geese,
Geese.
Chickens. I don't see
Chickens,
why we
yeah.
can't have chickens.
I mean, yeah, there's always chickens.
There's
always
always
chickens.
there always be chickens though.
Which actually, funny enough, I was looking at an article while we were talking about hemp in like animal feed. And actually, there was a study in Sweden about actually improving the yolk quality by feeding hemp to chickens.
Oh.
They increased their omega-3 output.
Oh.
So that could be something
Wow.
so the eggs might be even very good here. So I can just imagine like with the tea eggs we were talking about earlier. There you go.
Oh my gosh, full
We
circle.
send the sub-quality tea down
we
the
have
mountain.
so we have like nice joke with the tea eggs instead of like the century-old eggs, but we could do both. We could have both, and that would be the dream right there.
Oh my gosh, Jackie, I'm so hungry.
Yeah, I'm getting
Jackie,
hungry too.
One thing that we need to work on, and I think you should take points on, is a tea house. And
Okay.
I don't know whether it should be up the mountain, because maybe this is like the
Oh.
tea house that the sorcerers come, like the buyers they come to,
Yeah.
and this is like maybe where the families like they do the presentation,
Right.
and it's like a little more formal.
Mhm.
But they probably also have like a little restaurant up there or something.
Well, I was
my
gonna say, I was thinking they have two locations. They have the one that's like it's like the front, the storefront. So that's where they do business, but it's also the tea house where they do like people can come in, sit down, enjoy the view, get food. And then there's the more spiritual one, is it's further up the mountain, and that one has like the more scenic area, because I would imagine they would want to build something that's like, because we're in a mountain, they want to build something that's closer to the summit to get that kind of panorama and get the and enjoy that view. So but that's
your
a very
poor tea air
exclusive.
is just, we're adding more to their plate.
they are, I think that they're in charge of like a small horde of children.
A small horde.
A small horde of children.
And like children and teenagers, and this poor person is just like, okay, this is how we're gonna do it. And I think it'll also be a really interesting hook, right, for that family to see like, okay, are they now forced to rely on the kindness of people outside of the family to help keep this going?
Right. Which I think they might, which would probably be something that they're not accustomed to.
Yeah, they're not accustomed to this at all.
Yeah, honestly, if they're the eldest, based on my family, where my mother is one of 11, they would probably have a 15-year-old, 13-year-old, 11-year-old, 9-year-old, 8 or 7-year-old, 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and possibly 1-year-old sibling. So 8.
Yeah, and that's just on their, like, I imagine that these families were large, which is how they're able to keep the tea business going. But like so there's basically, they're the oldest. I think maybe the next oldest is like 23 or like something like that. And then like between their family, like Leon, I think that you're absolutely correct. I think there's just like multiple iterations of this within the two families. So there's maybe like 50 children and teenagers or people in their early 20s just like trying to figure this out.
Yep.
And that's why they always need to go back to Grandmother Joe.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's just they show up. I like to think that Grandmother Joe is just like, oh, every time they walk away, it's just like they need so much help.
Honestly, though, Grandma's probably kind of the de facto elementary teacher, would she not be? Like, she would be the one who would gather all the children to teach lessons while the adults are, trying to
keep the village running.
Most likely, yeah. Like, I imagine that the kids just kind of run free through the village, but I think that they would end up gathering around because like Grandma Joe has a lot of cool stories too.
Right.
And, like,
so I was sorry, go Emma.
Oh, like in that vein, like, are we going to work in some sort of record keeping? Like, if Grandma Joe is kind of the last lived experience and oral record, like, is someone going to be trying to put this on paper for?
I think that the T families have had this going on for generations.
With the T, right?
With the
like
T,
the
but not anything outside of that.
Oh,
I would love to introduce a child character, a child NPC who is, people haven't quite figured out, but they're memorizing every single story that Grandma tells.
That's really cool.
Oh,
like
and also because we're we're from a primarily lumber industry, everything written down is on wood slips still.
Yeah, I think that if you were
the tea house keeps all of it because it's the most dry location in the entire area because it's up in the mountains.
Yeah, maybe they keep the records for like the whole village and not just their own stuff. Like maybe they have their own private library, but they also have like the village recorets up on the mountain because it is the driest part.
Right.
So the furthest from the Beavers.
Yeah, so I think that the tea house, so the tea house that's the family business. I think is the cultural center for like in that sense of like, well, this is where you come in to enjoy the tea and you get the nice scenery. You get to hear about the village's history and everything, while you get the more commercial centers of the city, of the village, like further below the mountain, away from the tea house.
Yeah. So if you're looking for like old records, and because I think that could be an interesting distinction between like the mountain has written records and written tradition, and down in the village we have more oral tradition happening with Grandma Joe. Joe. I'm sorry.
Joe is good.
Joe is good.
For the writing, would there be some parchment too? Because they would have the animal hide.
I think so. I think it'd be a combination.
Yeah, it's a combination. Yeah.
But was paper a thing this early in the Han?
Yep.
Because I remember China's had paper for a very long time. So.
Quite a while, before this. So it would have been.
I guess it's just a question of if they would have the right materials in this region to make
or if
paper.
they can afford.
I don't think it would have been widespread.
I think it would have been
court based.
Yeah.
I like this idea though of memory
in the tea, but also like a local village concept could be like memories in the mountain, like this is where, or memories in the tea, or like something like there's always a memory in the tea, and it's referencing the fact that the tea is magical, but also the records of the village are also
straight up records.
It could be that the ritual that they use to create the tea, because the tea is stored by the library, it draws that knowledge into the tea.
Yeah,
so,
maybe
we got ourselves a ghostwriter situation here.
Ooh, I like that.
So maybe like if you drink, so the idea is like you can drink the tea, and depending on how old it is, like that could be another way of memories as well. It's just like it not only draws from the people who made it, like the hands who made it, but also like the records that it's kept next to. Like I can imagine like the two being in very similar conditions, like aging in very similar conditions. So that could be really, really cool. I also love the idea of like any record that you get is immediately it smells like tea. Like you open these pages and you fan them, they smell like tea.
Yeah. We did have a very interesting question come through in chat too, which especially given the pestilence, I think this is worth considering, is would they be either now or ever more open to outsiders coming in to settle and marry in to help maintain? I personally come down just due to the virulence and devastation of the pestilence. I feel like this would probably be something that would be more acceptable, but Granny has to like you.
Granny has to like you, and I feel like that is definitely the big thing. Like the few families that exist would have to also kind of be like, are we willing? Or how much pride do we have left? Like especially for like the like Michelle's character for like the tea house, like it's not even just family pride, it's like literally holding down the family heritage. So bringing someone new in, you're risking the dilution of that or the loss of that.
So they're selective. Like you obviously need people from the outside coming in,
right?
Especially if large parts of the village disappear suddenly. So I guess what we're saying is they do want them, they just want to choose.
Yeah, they're very selective. They have to be very selective.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining
you're in when Grandma Jo starts trying to set you up with one of the locals.
Yeah. I love this idea of Grandma Jo also being the matchmaker. Like for like the non-binary, like she's been trying to get Taro settled down for the longest time, but Taro refuses to get settled down. And like I think Grandma Jo could also be really great for the my non-binary T character, and like trying to get them to like realize like you need help and there are people here who can help you, but also maybe consider dating this person.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I have no time for dating.
Everyone who has Asian grannies knows how this goes.
Yeah. Every time in a gathering, they'll be like, speak up, and then they'll be like, are you married? When are you getting married?
So funny enough for me, it's not even my funny enough, it's not even my grandmother. My grandmother doesn't actually care at all. It's my grandfather who constantly for the last 10 years, every occasion he mentions, so have you been married yet?
Have you been married yet? Yes, but it's over now. Oh my god. Can you imagine like you saw him like a few months ago? Yeah, I'm lucky my grandma doesn't care. I think I've told this story before, but when I was like 22, she's like, do you have a boyfriend? I was like, no, not right now. She's like, good, you don't have time for that. And then she's never asked me again.
Wow.
So my grandma sees relationships as a waste of time.
Well, see, my grandfather was like literally waited until I was like 28, and then and for every year, at least 3 to 4 times a year, he will ask me, so have you been dating anybody? Have you found somebody? Please.
Yeah. No, my
and then once you get married, it's kids.
Yeah, it just switches.
Well, I know why.
my grandmother a few years ago was like, hey, so you're 26 now, right? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you promised me you'd have 5 kids by the time you're 25. And I was like, promise that? And I was like, I was like 4.
Granny's coming in, was like, I'm holding you to that.
Grandma does
20
not
years
forget.
Later.
Oh my god.
20 years later.
That's the kind of promise that Grandma will hold over your head.
They are my great-grandchildren.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
I don't think Grandma Jo is that bad.
No, she has too much. She has a whole village to like take
monitor,
care of,
maintain.
Yeah.
She doesn't necessarily.
The contract has been signed. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. She wants the town to be good, but she doesn't necessarily want more babies to have to look after.
Right.
It's a conundrum.
Yeah.
It is a conundrum.
So I think
What are we going to name this village?
Yeah.
I feel like we need to, before
we need to
stop today, we need to name this village.
We have some options. Like, Agatha, before we started streaming, you were thinking that it could be named after the most prominent figure, which is Joe. So that
there's
could work.
there's also the idea, likely this village formed up around a cypress lumber settlement. So that would be why the village exists in the first place. And I mean, as I, Seattle native, know, lumberjacks and as they called them at the time, working women can very much create a very thriving city.
We can call it Cypress Town.
I was thinking like, okay, so if anything, because Agatha knows, like, if they're gonna name something that's not based on a name, they have to make it fanciful and ostentatious sounding.
The place of fragrant trees.
I was gonna say either fragrant cypress or something related with the cypress. It has to be.
Looking up
the place of fragrant trees.
Something about like prosperity.
Oh yeah, it has to be prosperity. Yeah, there has to be either prosperity, happiness, or luck involved.
The place of fragrant prosperity.
Fragrant prosperity village.
Fragrant prosperity.
We could use the word perfumed instead. It sounds a bit more.
Okay.
A perfumed prosperity.
And are we going to do this name like this in English or like?
Oh right, yeah. What is our naming convention?
We are generally, I think, using Chinese names for the people. So I don't necessarily think using Chinese words for the names is a bad idea, just based on how we've been kind of approaching it.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is not a direct analog to China, of course. So since we're trying to avoid that, as opposed to what
we are trying to
also use mountain
perfume
because it is a mountain covered in good smelling stuff.
So the fragrant mountain.
The fragrant mountain.
Taken different ways.
That's why I recommended perfume.
Yeah, perfumed mountain.
Oh yeah, no, I love how you're like, let's
hold on.
Yeah, that's fair.
You could so maybe
fragrant can mean I'm smelling your farts.
I was thinking like, okay, so maybe instead of perfume, we could also say sweet, like referring to So you could call it
sweet cypress.
Sweet mountain. Sweet cypress. Oh, like that. I like that.
Sweet Cypress does sound a little bit like a retirement community, but I'm okay with that. So I'm gonna go visit my grandma.
It would have been a retirement community, but that darn pestilence just wiped out all of the people who would be old by now.
Oh my gosh, that's so sad.
Oh.
I am a horrible person, apparently.
No, I had a worse thing. I had a worse thing that came to my mind, but I'm not going to say it because I live in a state that's predominantly all retirees.
So sweet. I like perfumed mountain. I'm going to say like that's something that's appealed to me so far. I guess the mountain. Yeah. Perfume
or we can call it the really longer name, which is the Mountain of the Sweet Cypress.
I don't mind that.
Okay, so and also Emma, I saw your Tian back. Is that
I don't know how.
I don't think so, because I think Cypress is like it's usually translated to. I don't know if that's an actual
Cyprus.
Right.
I'm just using translate, so I don't know enough, but I would like it to be because within Kara-Tur they try so hard to make Chinese at least sounding place names. So if we're going to demonstrate how to do this better, like we should.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do we want the mountain in there? Sweet Cypress Mountain.
It depends on what's
Perfume
the more
Mountain.
important location. Like, is it the mountain or is it the village itself?
Yeah, that's true.
I imagine if we're going along with what Liana recommended, where it's like why people come here. Like, I like the idea of like, what about just Cypress Mountain?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's very like straightforward.
So the location is Cypress Mountain.
What you're saying is Cypress Hill. Is what we're
Cypress Hill.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
So we could name both the mountain and the village.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the mountain could be like Mountain of Memory, kind of going along with what Jackie suggested.
Yeah.
That would imply a recent name change, since obviously the mountain would have been named long before the village was established. So
maybe maybe
you know,
the pestilence, like that's also where we bury people.
Yeah.
And
yeah, well,
like that's,
because
they've got all those coffins, so I mean,
we got all those coffin wood.
But and it's also like where we put records, and I think
Yeah.
that's with the pestilence that was swept through twice. Like I think that's enough to change like the name of something. So the Mountain of Memory.
Should we
As long
put
as
that
Granny
under
Joe's behind it.
points?
I'm trying to figure out where to put that.
Yeah, okay. So, do we want to keep the village name as Sweet Cypress? I just put it in, but we could change it.
I think Sweet Cypress sounds a little Stardew Valley.
There.
Which isn't quite what we're going for, but I mean we could.
I think we have to keep working on the name.
Perfumed.
We have the general idea, but maybe get Daniel in on this too.
Yeah,
come up with a name and then.
Yeah,
we know three things: Cypress, mountain, smells good.
Smells.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a few Chinese-based names I've been kind of brewing in terms of like the mountain or the village.
Zephyr Cypress. Oh. Well,
I did write one where it's literally called Sweet Cypress Mountain.
Yeah, so we'll work on that, but it's
a work in progress.
Yeah.
I think we have a very good foundation for this village and its surrounding locale. Like I am so invested in this still unnamed village. And I'm so excited for us to keep working on it, and I think we will continue to do so. And this will be published at some point, I think, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna publish it through Valorous Games, so we'll be putting this, and it will not be tied to the main Valor product line. So it'll be a universal setting that you can use for your D&D games, or any other TTRPGs, Blades, or
Quest,
Powered by the Apocalypse, Quest, and anything. It should fit in, with the understanding that it's kind of at least a semi-magical fantasy Chinese-inspired setting.
Yeah, and we are going to continue this series as we dip our toes into different locales, which is also super exciting. But this is, I think, let's see. I don't remember. I don't remember how Daniel usually does the wrap up. I think we are not able to do any of these exciting things without our awesome patrons. So I want to take a chance to thank everyone. Patron. No.
Uh-oh.
Our...
Are you trying to get the screen to change?
There you go. Yep.
I didn't change the thing, so it's not me. That's fine.
The song instead.
Hello. Okay. Oh, no. Okay, you know what? It's fine. That's not as important as the actual patrons. So thank you all once again. Like, Daniel and I are just, again, blown away by the support that everyone has for us. Our disciples of the Sky Court, our Guardians of the Realm, Brooke Bright, Pixel Grotto, and Daisy May, thank you. And then, of course, we cannot forget our most honorable patrons, Ryan the Wizard Hall, Metal Leaf Games, Valor's Games, hey, shout out, pew, pew, pew. Dungeon Glitch / Matt, and the most honorable, Epic Pulse. Yeah, like this is basically, I am probably going to be replacing my Felty mic soon, and it's because of support from patrons. So again, thank you so much. Next week, I think we are returning, let me switch back. Yeah, everyone's back. Next week, next month, we're going to be returning, I think, to our regularly scheduled programming, where we're going to be reading through Kara-Tur again, but we will pick up this mini series at some point, and stay tuned for that. What else is happening? I think next week.
Is Al-Qadim back?
Al-Qadim is not, but they are going to be recording an episode of the regular Aegis Represent. They're going to be talking about fashion. Clothing, sorry, not fashion. Clothing, and that's going to be very cool. I don't think it's airing next week, but Al-Qadim is not back right now because, unfortunately, Amar is still not feeling well, and we wish a speedy recovery to Amar, because it's been very rough. So yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you everyone for coming up with this super awesome village. Shout out to the dire beaver, which will forever haunt my dreams. But yeah, thanks so much for
send us your fan art. Send us your fan art of the dire beaver.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That might be how I spend my afternoon now. I'm gonna draw a dire beaver.
Yes, please. I am both afraid and excited. But yeah, we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.